Joining us this week for Know Your Enemy, we got Justin Spears from the Tucson Star talking Arizona, Colorado. Let's start with Brett Brennan. I mean, look, last year it was a little rocky for y'all. Just where does the fan base stand? You know, where does Brett Brennan, I guess, stand with the fan base in terms of bringing this program back and, you know, really making it his own?
Well, let's check back after Saturday because this is really the crossroads for the season for Arizona. You know, Arizona is now 4-3 in year 2 under Brent Brennan. And right now, after two, gut-wrenching losses, losses that Arizona could have easily won. We're talking about a couple plays away from Arizona being 6-1 right now rather than 4-3. And so going up against, a struggling Colorado team, albeit Colorado is a different animal at home at Folsom Field, this is a big challenge for Arizona. And, if they drop 3 straight games and they come back for homecoming with a 4-4 record, and then you go into that last stretch, trying to figure out ways to come up with 2 wins, that's going to be really tough. So right now, I think that Arizona is at a crossroads this season. But with that being said, Arizona is a much better team this year than it was last year, which is crazy to say because last year's team had Tetairoa McMillan and Jonas Avianaya and Tyler Loop. Like, they had all these NFL guys on their team. But I feel like the roster 21 through 85 is deeper and it's much better than it was last year. You don't have the household names that you're, wanting to go buy a ticket to go see, like a Tetairoa McMillan. But I feel like overall this roster is much better. And they also have the right coaches in place too. And, Brent Brennan, I kind of feel bad for him because when he was first hired, it was in January. So he had already missed that first transfer portal window. And as you guys know, that's where you get a lot of really good players in that first window. And Brent Brennan missed out on that opportunity. And then, he kind of, when he came to Arizona, he also had to play defense a little bit. He had to try to figure out ways to retain his roster and keep guys on board rather than them just following Jedd Fisch to Washington or going somewhere else. And Brent Brennan said it at Big 12 Media Day earlier this year. Like, when he was first hired, he felt like he had to kiss some ass a little bit. And, he couldn't really coach up players during spring because if you say one bad thing, they're like, okay, see ya, I'm out of here. Like, there were, a couple of really good players for Arizona that played last year that were in the transfer portal in spring. One of them was cornerback Tacario Davis. And so if you're, coaching up Tacario, you kind of have to watch what you say a little bit because he's already in the transfer portal. And, from the outside looking in, how does that look where Tacario Davis decided to stay for a little bit and then he just decides to back out and enter the transfer portal? So they had to do a lot of kissing ass, like I said, or like Brent Brennan said. And then the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, it just wasn't a good match for what Arizona had personnel-wise. It was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And it was just disastrous all the way through. And then you couple that with the injuries, and it just was an epic collapse for Brent Brennan. But they went in the offseason. They hired 3 new coordinators. They got 60 newcomers to come in. Some of them are from FCS. Some of them are from Group of 5. And they were able to keep the face of the franchise intact in Noah Fifita. And now it really feels like Brent Brennan's team, right? It's not just Brent Brennan inheriting the Jedd Fisch leftovers. This really feels like his team because the guys that decided to stay, they know what this coaching staff is about. And the guys that they brought in were recruited by this coaching staff. So it's just a much better feel. It seems like everyone is at the right seat at the table. And now it's going to get really interesting because, if they lose to Colorado, then yeah, that's not a good look for Arizona. But I feel like the program is in a much better position this year than it was last year.
Justin, obviously, Noah Fifita gets a lot of attention, and rightfully so. He has really bounced back this season and reminded people that the caliber of player and quarterback he is. But this Arizona defense is, I think, one of the most slept-on, underrated units in the whole conference, only allowing opposing quarterbacks to complete about 51% of their passes. That's first in the conference. I think they got 9 picks, only allowed 4 passing touchdowns. What has kind of led to this defensive turnaround for Arizona, and what has kind of made them such a strong unit this season?
Yeah, I think Danny Gonzalez, the new defensive coordinator, has really implemented this aggressive mindset. And, Arizona doesn't necessarily have the size like some of the other schools in the Big 12, but they're fast and they're very physical. And Danny is kind of like a mad scientist back there. Like he's going to draw up a bunch of unique blitzes with safeties, with linebackers. We've seen 4 linebacker looks for the Wildcats. And so I think the fact that there's been a lot of versatility, a lot of different dimensions with this defense has led to their success. But on the other side, that defense has really been struggling to stop the run over the last couple of weeks. And this is a defense that went into that BYU game a couple weeks ago as a top 10 defense. I think they're still top 20 now, but they definitely have taken a dip because of their inability to stop the run. And Bear Bachmeier is this big body quarterback that's just going to run through your face. And he's certainly had his way against Arizona. Same with LJ Martin, who in my opinion is one of the better running backs in the league. And then the following week against Houston, Dean Connors, got active, and then Connor Wegman, their big quarterback, they just ran quarterback power, and Arizona just had no answer for it. And so it's funny, the first 5 games of the year, Arizona had only allowed 488 total rushing yards. And then in the last 2 games, they gave up 490. So stopping the run, that's the big red flag that Arizona is trying to fix right now. Now with Colorado, Caden Salter is not Connor Wegman. He's not Bear Bachmeier in the sense that, he's not as big as those guys. Like those guys are like 20 to 30 pounds heavier than Caden Salter. But Caden Salter is still very athletic. And when he can break off for some nice runs. We've seen him, break off for runs of 20 or 30 plus yards. So I feel like, Colorado, depending on, what they're going to do at quarterback, if they stay with Caden Salter, I would imagine that maybe we're going to see some quarterback runs and see if Arizona is prepared to stop that. But that's definitely a big challenge. But yeah, you're totally right. This Arizona defense is much better than it was last year.
On the offensive side of the ball, people like me, when our team's offense struggle, we point at the play caller and say, you got to change this guy and got to make changes here. And we're not always right. But that's what Arizona fans were saying last year. And they did change the offensive coordinator and the play caller. And it seems like it's really helped this offense, especially Noah Fifita. What has changed on offense? What did they do to kind of re-unlock the old Noah Fifita?
Yeah, I think getting the ball out quickly, if you look at that game against Houston, 24 of 26 passing, by the way. If you were to tell me that Arizona won the turnover battle and Noah Fifita went 24 or 26 passing, I would have asked you how much did Arizona win by. But I feel like the offense really found something in this game against Houston where they got the ball out quickly. They got it into a lot of bubble screens, and they allowed Arizona's wide receivers, and there's a stable of them. There's some really good talent in that receiver room, and they were able to have a lot of yak. Like Trey Spivey broke out for a 70-yard touchdown run. Javon Watley also had a couple of nice catches as well. And so you're seeing this Arizona offense just it looks more like the air raid system that Seth Doege hails from. Seth Doege played for Mike Leach at Texas Tech. He comes from that air raid tree. But when he was at Marshall, give him a ton of credit. He schemed the offense around the talent, and Marshall actually had more rushing yards than passing yards. So Seth Doege, he's not a guy that's like just focused on air raid, and that's the only thing that he does. He does a nice job of scheming the offensive game plan week in and week out. But against Houston, you saw the ball really, get out of Noah's hands quickly, get it into the wide receivers' hands, and they were able to make some plays. So I feel like that version of Noah Fifita, that's the kind of Noah that we saw in his breakout season in 2023. And I would imagine you're going to see more of those quick passes, the short passes, the screen types. I would imagine you're going to see that a lot more down the road.
Justin, I wanted to ask you about the running game. CU got gashed last week against Utah. They allowed 400 plus yards in a game. You're talking about Arizona allowing that in 4 games. That's what Colorado allowed against Utah. Just what does Ismail Mahdi bring to the table? How much do you think the run, pass splits are going to be dictated? And, could they just throw out what's worked to this point and go, what, everyone else has run on Colorado, we're going to run on Colorado this week?
Yeah, and, Deion Sanders said it in the locker room afterwards, like, hey, blueprint is out. Like, these guys are just going to blitz the hell out of us. They're just going to run the ball down our throats. And I feel like Arizona might do that if Colorado allows them to. But, this kind of the feel that I have going into this game is that the right thing, or the logical thing is Arizona's going to run because Utah did it. But then, Oklahoma State, kind of in a similar boat, had a poor rushing defense going into that game against Arizona. So what did Oklahoma State do? They put 8 guys in the box, and they were daring Noah Fifita to beat them with his arm. And sure enough, they did. Noah Fifita had 5 touchdown passes. So I'd imagine that Colorado, they understand, like, okay, the jig is up. Like, the blueprint is out there. To beat Colorado, you just got to run the football. And I feel like, Deion Sanders, he's a good coach. He's going to have a good game plan for that. Colorado's defensive line, I mean, I would think is maybe the strength of this team. I mean, you guys know Colorado better than I do. But I just feel like in terms of the defense, those guys up front, they can get after it. So I feel like Colorado's going to have a game plan for Saturday. But yeah, Ismail Mahdi is a really good running back. And, he came to Arizona as an all-purpose player. He was an all-purpose All-American a couple years ago at Texas State. And, even if the run game does not get going for Ismail Mahdi, I would imagine that he can be effective in the passing game as well. And then Kedrick Reesano is another name to look for on Saturday. He's been banged up this year, but he, really came back healthy in that game against Houston, had a rushing touchdown. He's a guy that's going to run through you. He is really a lot to handle, and it's going to take a couple guys to tackle him. And so those 2 guys right there are going to be the 1-2 rushing punch for Arizona. And then also, Noah Fifita has done a nice job of running the football as well. Seth Dagey has designed some quarterback runs for him as well. So look out for QB1 to be effective in the running game as well.
Justin, you mentioned earlier that Arizona defensive coordinator Danny Gonzalez is kind of like a mad scientist, so to speak. I saw that, I think this was yesterday, maybe the day before, that Gonzalez broke down film from the Houston game with you guys in the media. I'm kind of jealous a little bit, I'm not going to lie. But how was that, and what did you kind of just learn from that kind of film session with the DC?
Man, as a football junkie, it was like music to my ears, man. Like, I could have sat there for hours watching Danny Gonzalez break down film. And we've never had a coach like that. In my time covering Arizona, I've never had a coach that was just like, all right, you jabronis, you guys think you know it all. Let's watch the film here. Let me break it down for you. A lot of it was, kind of off the record, but, he was showing some of the third down plays that Houston got. And he explained it to us why Houston was able to get those third downs. Like, he would show us a play from the game, and then he would say, okay, we practiced that same exact play in practice. Look at this. The next clip is from practice, and it's Arizona executing that play. He's like, look, we executed in practice, but in the game, this guy was out of this lane. This guy wasn't aligned properly, and that's exactly why the play broke down, and they were able to pick up the third down. Like, it was awesome to see him with the clicker going through all these plays. And we just sat there for like 15, 20 minutes just going over film. Danny Gonzalez is a treat, man. I love listening to his press conferences every Tuesday. I know you guys are busy with Colorado, but if you ever just are bored, listen to Danny Gonzalez, break down film and talk football. It's mesmerizing.
Oh, yeah.
Last one for me, and a classic that I ask everyone on this. Arizona wins the football game on Saturday if they do blank.
If they run the ball effectively, effectively doesn't mean you got to put up Utah numbers, right? But Brent Brennan is 1-6 on the road at Arizona, or I should say Arizona is 1-6 under Brent Brennan on the road. And if you look at really the common theme in those games, they struggle to run the football. They did a much better job against Houston, and so I feel like if they keep that up, they'll be good and they'll win this game. Control the line of scrimmage, control, time of possession, and then, winning the turnover battle as well. And I feel like, fourth down stops, they consider that turnovers. So if you can get fourth down stops, if you can come up with an interception or maybe a forced fumble, and if you get up on them early and put your foot on their throat, like, if you don't allow, if you allow Colorado to come back, I mean, that could be problematic for Arizona because Colorado's a really good team at home. And they've shown that this year. Even though that they have struggled this year, they're still a really good team. So I feel like if you take the crowd out of it early and get up big and, play to win instead of play to lose, like we saw against BYU, then I think Arizona will take care of business. And this is a very important game because if they win, then they can come back home and they have a chance to get to bowl eligibility against Kansas for homecoming.
This was great, Justin. Appreciate you joining us, man. Just let the people know where they can find your work on the internet.
Yeah, you can find my coverage of Arizona football on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster mobile app, and you can follow me on Twitter or the social media app formerly known as Twitter X at Justin E Sports. You can also check me out on Instagram, all that fun stuff. I'm excited to get out to Boulder, man. I love Boulder. I love the fact that it's not like a night game. I know it's 5 o'clock out there in Boulder, but you're still going to see the sun. And I think Folsom Field is one of my favorite college game day atmospheres. It's awesome, and hopefully maybe I can smell some of that stuff that Deion Sanders smells in the second quarter.
I'm sure
you will.
This was great, Justin. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on Saturday, man.
Appreciate it,
Yeah,
Justin.
appreciate you guys. Thank you.